Hello everyone. In this session, I am going to explain Candide by Voltaire. Voltaire was an influential Enlightenment thinker known for his wit, satire, and advocacy for freedom of speech and religion. He was a prolific writer, famous for his works like Candide and his philosophical essays. His ideas heavily influenced the French Revolution and subsequent movements for civil liberties. Candide, written by Voltaire and first published in 1759, it is a satirical novella that critiques the optimistic philosophy prevalent in the 18th century, particularly the idea that all is for the best in the best of all possible world. Here are some key points about Candide. First is plot summary. The beginning. Candide is a young man living in the castle of Baron of Thunder Ten Tronch in Westphalia. He is taught by Dr. Fenglos, a philosopher who exposes unwavering optimism. Candide falls in love with the Baron's daughter, Cungon, and is expelled from the castle when their romantic relationship is discovered. After that, Candide's expulsion sets off a series of misadventures that take him across Europe, South America, and beyond. He faces wars, unnatural disasters, and human cruelty. Candide meets various characters, including the optimistic Feglos, the pessimistic Martin, and the practical Kikembo. Candide survives a brutal Bulgarian army attack. He is reunited with Feglos, who has contracted syphilis but remains optimistic. Candide and Feglos travel to Lisbon and experience the devastation of the earthquake and the horrors of the Inquisition. Candides find Cungon in Prague and later in Turkey, where she has faced her own series of misfortune. In conclusion, we can say that despite numerous hardships, including disillusionment with Fanglo's philosophy, Candide continues his quest to reunite with Cungon. Ultimately, they settle on a small farm in Turkey, and the story concludes with Candide rejecting Fanglo's relentless optimism, famously declaring, "We must cultivate our garden," emphasizing practical work over philosophical speculation. Themes of this novel are optimism versus reality. The novella critiques Lib's optimism, embodied by Fanglos, by contrasting it with the harsh reality faced by the character. Second is the absurdity of suffering. Voltaire highlights the randomness and cruelty of suffering, questioning the notion that everything happens for a reason. Next is religious hypocrisy. The blood satirizes religious institutions and figures, exposing their corruption and hypocrisy. Next is philosophical critique. Voltaire challenges various philosophical and social norms, advocating for a more pragmatic approach to life. Now, Candide. Style in Candide are satirical tone. Voltaire employs wit, irony, and exaggeration to critique society and philosophical ideas. Precarious structure. The novella follows Candide's episodic adventure, typical of precarious novel. Philosophical dialogue. The story includes discussion between characters that explore different philosophical perspectives. So, Candide remains as a classic of Western literature, celebrated for its biting satire and enduring philosophical insights. It continues to be studied and appreciated for its critique of blind optimism and its call for practical engagement with the world. The question arises is that describe Candide as a satire. Candide is indeed a prime example of satire and mockery, as Voltaire uses the novella to sharply critique various aspects of society, philosophy, and human nature. Here, how Candide survives as a satire and mockery. First is religious institution. Voltaire satirizes religion institutions, particularly the Catholic Church, by highlighting their hypocrisy, corruption, and involvement in atrocities such as the Inquisition. Characters like the Grand Inquisitor and the Old Woman represent the dark side of religious authority, while the Lisbon earthquake serves as a commentary on the problem of evil in a world supposedly governed by a benevolent deity. Second is philosophical optimism. The character of Feglos embodies the philosophical of optimism, famously declaring that all is for the best in the best of all possible world. However, Voltaire mercilessly mocks his philosophy by subjecting Feglos and Candide to a series of absurd and horrific misfortune, illustrating the folly of blindly optimistic thinking in the face of real world suffering and injustice. Third is noble class. Though characters like the Baron and Baroness, as well as various aristocrats encountered throughout Candide's journey, Voltaire satirizes the aristocracy and their descendants' self-indulgent lifestyle. The contrast between their privilege and the suffering endured by common people underscores the novella critique of social inequality. Next is war and violence. Voltaire ridicules the absurdity and brutality of war through Candide experience as a soldier and his encounter with varying nations. The Bulgar army's brutal treatment of Candide and his subsequent disillusionment with military glory serve as a commentary on the senselessness of violence and the folly of blind allegiance to authority. Next is human nature. The characters encountered by Candide often exemplify various flaws and vices of human nature, including greed, vanity, and cruelty, from the shallow and materialistic and Wendlunder to the morally bankrupt and Chiquez. Voltaire presents a satirical portrait of humanity's moral shortcomings. Next is cultural and political institution. Voltaire takes aim at various cultural and political institutions, including government, legal system, and colonial enterprises. Through Candide travels to different countries and encounter with rules and officials, Voltaire exposes the corruption, incompetence, and injustice prevalent in these institutions. Overall, Candide is a biting satire that uses mockery and exaggeration to lampoon to the follies and injustice of its time, as well as to provoke reflection on timeless aspects of human condition. Next question is Candide as a literary piece and a parable. The Candide can be considered both a literary piece and a parable, as it incorporates elements of both forms of writing. First, we see as a literary piece. Satirical novel, as we above see about its satirical elements. Candide is primarily a satirical novel that critiques various aspects of 18th century society, including religion, philosophy, and politics. Voltaire uses wit, irony, and exaggeration to expose the absurdities and flaws of the world around him. Second is character development. The novella features well-developed characters such as Candide, Finglos, Cungon, whose experience and interaction drive the plot forward and convey deeper thematic message. Next is narrative structure. The story follows Candide's journey through a series of episodic adventures typical of Picaret's novel. This narrative structure allows Voltaire to explore different settings and satirize various social institutions and practices. Second is parable. Moral lessons. Like a parable, Candide imparts moral lesson through its narrative. The novella challenges the notion of blind optimism and encourages readers to question philosophical ideals that do not align with reality. The conclusion, where Candide rejects Fanglo's philosophy in favor of practical engagement with the world, serves as a moral lesson about the importance of taking action and cultivating one's own happiness. Next is universal themes. Parables often convey universal truth or themes through simple allegorical storytelling, Similarly, Candide addresses timeless themes such as the nature of suffering, the search for meaning, and the human condition, making it resonate with readers across different cultures and time periods. Next is symbolism. Certain elements in Candide can be interpreted symbolically, adding depth to its parabolic nature. For example, the characters and their names, as well as recurring motifs like the garden, can be seen as symbolic representation of broader ideas or concepts. In summary, Candide functioned both as a literary piece, employing satire, character development, and narrative structure, and as a parable, conveying moral lesson and universal truth through its allegorical storytelling and symbolism. So that's all for today's session. Thank you so much for listening so carefully.